Hollywood film sets hide a world unseen by the camera, one built not by actors, but by silent workers who labor in the shadows. Miguel Ramirez was one of them. At 39, he spent 14 hours a day lifting cables, mounting lights, and making sure every shot could happen on time. But once the set went dark, his real struggle began. His wife, Sophia, was battling multiple health issues at home. Their 6-year-old daughter, Elena, had a rare heart condition that required ongoing treatment. Medical bills piled high. Rent was always overdue. Miguel wore the same steel-toed boots every day, not because he loved them, but because he couldn't afford another pair. And yet, he never complained. He showed up every day, quiet, steady, invisible. It was during the filming of the new Matrix movie that Miguel crossed paths with Keanu Reeves. To most, Keanu was a star. But to those who paid attention, he was something else. Kind, grounded, respectful. He nodded at crew members, held doors, and always said thank you. Miguel never expected to have a conversation with him, until one day during a short coffee break, Keanu approached and asked a simple question. "How are you doing today?" Miguel was caught off guard. No actor had ever asked him that. Not like they really meant it. He tried to smile, but his voice wavered. "My daughter. She's sick. Another surgery's coming up. Insurance won't cover all of it." There it was, his truth, hanging in the air between them. Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't shift awkwardly or offer generic words. He just listened, eyes calm, steady. In that moment, Miguel felt like he wasn't invisible, like someone actually saw him. "I want to help," Keanu said gently. "No spotlight, no cameras, just a quiet promise from one human to another." Miguel blinked. Was this real? Was he being tested? Was kindness like this even allowed in a place like Hollywood? But Keanu wasn't performing. His voice wasn't dramatic. It was calm, certain, and kind. That night, Miguel returned home and told Sophia what had happened. She didn't speak. She just held his hand and whispered, "Maybe not all stars stay in the sky." The next morning, as Miguel arrived on set, the production manager called him into the office. His heart raced. Had he done something wrong? Was he being let go? With hesitant steps, he entered the small room. On the desk was a plain envelope, his name carefully written on it. He picked it up, opened it slowly with trembling fingers. Inside was a check, an amount so large it nearly knocked the breath out of him. It was enough to cover Elena's medical bills, months of rent, and more. But what caught his breath was the handwritten note folded next to it. "For Elena, the world is better with her smile in it." There was no signature, no fancy logos, no sign of who had sent it. But Miguel didn't need a name. The handwriting may have been unfamiliar, but the gesture, the heart behind it, was unmistakable. This was from Keanu. It wasn't a press stunt. No cameras, no headlines. Just silent help given by someone who understood struggle. Miguel stood in stunned silence, tears building in his eyes. He held the envelope to his chest like it was a lifeline. That night, back home, he showed the note to Sophia. She read it slowly, her lips trembling. Then, without a word, she wrapped her arms around Miguel. For the first time in a long while, they didn't cry from fear, but from hope. Miguel knelt by Elena's bedside, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "We're going to be okay, mija. Someone out there believes in us." Months passed. Elena underwent her operation. It wasn't without risk, but the doctors were hopeful. And this time, so was Miguel. Her little heart, once fragile, now beat stronger day by day. Miguel found himself working fewer hours, not because he had given up, but because he had something to go home to. He took Sophia and Elena on small walks. He read stories again. He laughed. He breathed. One afternoon, as the golden sun lit up the lot outside the film set, Miguel and his family enjoyed a modest picnic under a shady tree. Laughter rang as Elena danced with her mother, spinning with joy. Keanu happened to be walking by, script in hand, coffee in the other. He stopped, spotting the trio. His face lit up with a soft smile. Elena ran up to him, arms wide, and hugged him tight. "You're the man from the TV," she squealed. Keanu chuckled, crouching down. "And you must be the little warrior your dad talks about." Miguel stood, speechless, watching the two connect. There were no cameras, no media frenzy. Just a man sharing a quiet moment with the family he had helped save. Keanu looked at Miguel and said gently, "Sometimes all it takes is one child's smile to remind you that everything is worth it." That day, beneath the California sky, there were no lines to rehearse, no lights to hit. Only a quiet, powerful truth. That greatness isn't measured by fame or fortune, but by how deeply you can touch someone else's life. Back on set, Miguel wasn't just a crew member anymore. People greeted him differently. Not because of pity, but out of respect. His story had quietly rippled through the production team, though no one spoke of it publicly. Other crew members, once silent and resigned, began opening up to him. They asked for advice, shared their own fears. Miguel listened. He didn't offer easy answers, but his presence was a reminder. Sometimes surviving is its own kind of heroism. He didn't hide what Keanu had done, but he didn't boast either. He simply said, "He helped us," because he could, and I'll carry that forward. In his own quiet way, Miguel became a lighthouse for others on the set. A steady, unshakable reminder that empathy still existed in places no one expected to find it. And Keanu? He never spoke of the gesture, never mentioned the check. But every time their paths crossed, he greeted Miguel not as a subordinate, but as an equal. As a man whose strength wasn't measured in lines delivered on screen, but in battles fought far away from any spotlight. A year later, the film premiered. The red carpet was crowded with flashing lights, reporters shouting questions, and fans screaming from behind barricades. Keanu walked slowly, respectfully, pausing to greet fans and pose for photos. During a quick interview, a journalist asked him, "What was the most meaningful part of making this film?" Keanu paused. The noise seemed to fade around him. He glanced past the cameras, past the lights, and smiled softly. "I met someone on set. A crew member. He wasn't in front of the camera, but he showed me what real strength looks like." The reporter tilted her head. "What did he do?" Keanu looked directly into the lens. He loved his family more than anything. He worked silently, tirelessly, without complaint. And when he needed help, he had the courage to accept it. He reminded me that real heroes don't wear costumes or say catchphrases. They show up, they fight for the people they love, and they never ask for credit. Back home, Miguel watched the broadcast. Sophia was beside him. Elena, now healthier, was asleep upstairs. As Keanu's words echoed through the room, Miguel felt a tear slide down his cheek. Not out of sadness, but out of deep, grateful recognition. Then came Keanu's final words. "True kindness doesn't need to be loud. And sometimes a single hand on the shoulder can change the course of someone's entire life."